The question today is, how do your open centers or undefined centers go during celebrations? Hi, I'm Marianne from Human Design Alchemy, and welcome to today's episode where we're going to unpack a little bit to do with our undefined or open centers in human design. So this is being recorded just before Christmas, and I've had a few conversations lately with people about stress that they're feeling and things like that, and talked about how that relates to the open and undefined centers. So I'm going to run through them with not a huge amount of detail, but hopefully enough so that you get something to think about going into the holiday season and the celebrations and things that might be happening for you. So I'm going to start, first of all, down the bottom of the body graph with the root center. So there's less than 50% of people who have this center undefined. So chances are when you're with a group of people, they're going to have it defined, or at least more than half of them will. So what does it mean if you've got this center undefined? So basically this center, in the more negative aspect, perhaps, depending on how you want to talk about it, does relate to stress. And what happens when you've got this undefined is that you feel the stress of needing to do something. So the root center is a pressure center. So there's some pressure energy there. And the pressure always feels like you need to do something with it. So there's this feeling that you have to do something. And, you know, for example, if you're in charge of organizing a meal for, you know, the Christmas break or whatever, you may find that you feel extra stressed. You feel like you have to put in extra effort, that you're having to constantly focus on getting everything done, getting everything perfect sometimes can come in here. All right. And it's almost like there's this impulse that just keeps on driving you forward, and you almost feel like others are judging you. They may not be, but generally speaking, it's the impact of their defined center energy that is actually driving you forward. So you can actually get into a big stress, essentially, when you are unaware and you're caught up in this. So what can you do? A little bit of thinking, a little bit of planning would be my suggestion. So first of all, plan out what you actually have to do. So you know exactly what you have to do, because the pressure here can make you overdo, over-deliver essentially. So you don't want to be overdoing. All right, so plan out, what do I actually have to do? What are my steps? You know, where am I up to in those steps? That will keep your stress levels hopefully under control as well. Now, the other part of it is when you're caught up in that, you're feeling like people are judging you, you're feeling this pressure to get everything done. Sometimes you are very reluctant to have people come in and help you. So try and reframe that and actually have a plan for having people help you. So you can actually just ask them, ask people to give you some support, ask people to do different things on the day, all right, rather than feeling like it all has to come to you. That is just the pressure that you're under. It's probably not the reality. So spread the load and try and reduce your stress that way. Okay, let's move straight up from the root center to the sacral center. So this one, particularly for projectors and for manifestors, can create problems around Christmas. And this is because there is so much to do at Christmas. Everybody's really ramped up, you know, about getting everything they need, buying all the presents, making sure they've got all of the things that they need, putting up decorations, la, 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 lots of things to do. Okay, remember, when this is not defined, then you're not here to be doing lots of tasks and putting your energy into that. but you get caught up in everyone else's. So 70% of people have a defined sacral. So if you're a projector, if you're a reflected, probably less so because of their kind of aura, but definitely manifestors and projectors, you can get so caught up in the energy of the sacral that you just don't know when to stop yourself. So it's not a pressure energy like the root, but it is this workforce energy that makes you feel like there's so much work to do and you're just going to keep doing it. Remember, you're with an open or undefined center, you're taking in someone else's energy, you're reflecting it, and in the process of reflecting it back out, you are amping it up. So it amps it up in you, it amps it up out into the environment. So you're basically like the Energizer Bunny with so many people with their energy about everything they have to do. So you can get caught up in that and just keep going and going and going until eventually, like the Energizer Bunny, your battery dies and that's it. And then you can't even enjoy the holiday. So what can you do? Number one, you really need to have some time alone. Just disconnect from that sacral energy. Step out, have a walk in nature, take a breath of fresh air, just have a little bit of distance. All right? Calm yourself down. Okay? You don't actually have to keep going. The trouble with this center when it's undefined, particularly in this circumstance, is that there's no way for you to determine when you've done enough. So in other words, the big not self thing here is not knowing when enough is enough. So you have to put in external barriers because there's not going to be a point at which your body goes, uh-oh, that's it, enough's enough. That's what happens to people with a defined sacral. They'll reach the end of their work hours, their energy, and the body just goes, oh, time to rest. When you don't have a defined sacral, you don't have that switch. You need to put it in place for yourself as an external thing. All right. So you're going to say, I'm going to do these things for this amount of time, then I'm stopping. All right. So put in your own boundaries. All right, let's kind of swing across to the little neighbors to the sacral. So let's go to one that can be quite tricky at this time of year, which is the solar plexus. So when you have this undefined, it means that you have no consistent emotional energy. And instead, you're taking in from other people, slightly more than 50% of the population, their emotional wave. Now, chances are high that at this time of year, under all of the different energies and stresses and things like that, that people with an emotional wave who are unaware will be essentially having really ramped up emotions. Remember, you're taking that in, you're ramping it up more. There's not anything that you can do in the moment to stop that process. Remember, this is all about the mechanics, the energetic mechanics of how you work, and that's what your human design shows you. So you can't put up a barrier and go, ooh, no more emotion. Okay, number one, you need to recognize that the emotion you're feeling is very highly likely it's someone else. It does depend on what gates you've got in your solar plexus undefined, because it's going to be triggering them. But generally, you're ramping up someone else's emotional energy. It's going to feel potentially like it's yours. It's hard to differentiate. So heightened emotions from the person with the wave, your emotions are even more heightened. Not a great recipe for a lovely, calm, relaxed Christmas. This is the reason why I believe Christmas can be so tense for some families. You're going to have half or more than half of you with emotional waves, and the other portion of you will be open and amping up the waves. There's all sorts of things, all sorts of unresolved stuff that affect the emotions at this time of year. Awareness of that. Awareness that it's, just tell yourself it's not your emotions, someone else. The best thing you can do if you feel like you just can't control it and you're going to react or act in a way that's not going to be helpful is to actually step out of the situation. Okay, chances are you'll know some people that when you're with them in the group, your emotions feel quite level. They're probably someone who also, like you, doesn't have a defined solar plexus, or it could be someone with a defined solar plexus, but one of the more moderate waves. So you could spend a bit of time with them. You can, once again, step outside of the situation. That would be my number one recommendation for all of these situations. Step outside. You don't have to stay in someone else's energy. If it's, depending on where you are in the world, it could be rainy, it could be snowy, it could be really hot, whatever. Okay, find a place to be by yourself if you can't go outside. There has to be the bathroom. Surely you can sit in there for a while till someone comes and knocks on the door. Says, hey, I need to go. All right, so find a place just to get out of other people's energy. But also try not to bring that amplified emotion into the situation. All right, so this could just require you to bite your tongue, keep your mouth closed. All right. Okay, let's move on to the other side of the sacral now, to the spleen. So the spleen with its lovely intuitive aspects. So, once again, it's 50-50-ish with who's got a defined spleen and who doesn't. So, if you've got it undefined, you're going to have access to everybody's intuitive energy. That could be a good thing, maybe. It's not a bad thing. Just be aware of who your audience is. If they're not wanting to get some of your sudden realizations that come through, tapping into this intuitive energy, just keep quiet. But the number one thing that can happen, particularly with this center in a social setting, so we're talking, particularly holidays, holiday get-togethers, family get-togethers, that kind of thing, is that you're also tapping into people's fears. So this can also be something that can really be amped up around a holiday season. Your fears about all kinds of things. You don't know what specifically they're going to be feeling, except you're going to be tapping into that. And, you're going to react from fear to different situations just like they will be. And that can also create tension and issues between people. So, just try and keep a lid on it. You don't have to get into a fear state. So fear essentially becomes, I would say, like the root of the not self for all of the different aspects of your design. There's something usually there that comes down to fear. So, arrive there in your highest energy. Know what your defined centers are, tap into them and try and be in the highest energy, the highest alignment of your defined centers. And that should hopefully balance out any of this fear energy that you might be getting from others. Now, the other thing that may be not quite so good, and this will depend on how much work you've done on your human design, how much you've released the layers of fear that have actually built up from other people across time, potentially you might be able to tap into someone's state of wellness or not. Now, you're going to have people with all different levels of, of where their immune system essentially is at, but you'll be able to sense that. Sometimes it's almost taking in their unwellness, and if you're unaware, you can end up feeling unwell. So you really need to go, is this mine? Is this someone else's? So it's just an extra little warning there. That's something that I find happens to me when I'm in a large group. You know, I might get a headache, or I might just feel a little bit sick or off, that kind of thing, because I'm tapping into someone else's feeling of unwellness. All right, let's move up now into the heart area. I'm going to start with the will center. So with this one, it may or may not be a problem in your group, because there are only about 30% of people who actually have this defined. So depending on how big your group is, you may or may not have someone who's got it defined. If there is someone who's got it defined in the group, then you can find yourself over-promising on things. You can find yourself trying to prove how good you are at something to someone. You know, it's about proving your value. This triggers this feeling that you don't have value, that you're not as valuable as other people. You know, there's kind of a value element to this one. So just kind of let yourself know you don't have to prove anything. You know, you are valuable. You are worthy. That's the reset condition for an undefined will center. So remember, this is will, ego, heart center. It has multiple names. So if we think about that, the ego is also something that can come in here. You're actually taking in the energy of other people's egos. What's the health like of the egos in your group? You're going to be taking it in. And that can also, you know, trigger certain feelings in you as well, based on what the health of their ego is. All right. So once again, spleen and will center, if you feel like you're taking on stuff that's not yours, separation is also the way to go. Just a little break. You know, even if you aim to step out every hour or something like that, just to disconnect yourself from those energies could be the way to go. Now, the other thing I'd say is if you've got a defined will center, be really aware of your expectations around people doing things that they've said they're going to do. You're able to fulfill your commitments. Other people may not be able to. So have that awareness if you've got a defined center, and be kind. You know, be kind to those people. All right, let's move along into the G center. So this one, you're going to be having at least 55% of the people who you're there having a defined G center. So if you've got it undefined, you're actually getting a sense of everybody who's there, what their identity is like. Now, this can sometimes feel a little bit like emotions as well. It's not quite, but this is how some of the people I've worked with kind of explain it. You know, they're kind of sensing, you know, something deep within that person. And it may be something positive, it may not be. You know, we're all different identities. We're all entirely unique people. So how that impacts you can be a little tricky. Just be careful that you're not taking on board and acting out as someone else's identity. All right, because remember, you're going to amp up whatever that energy is, positive or negative. So just be a little bit careful, you know, having an open G center, identity center, gives you the opportunity to really explore identities. Perhaps not at some big get together though. You know, just have that awareness that you're taking in people's identities, and just, you know, try and be as authentic to you as you can be. It can be really tricky with this particular, you know, area being undefined. Once again, stepping out can be useful. Awareness can be useful. You could almost treat it like a little game as well. You know, what's this person's identity like? What's that person identity? What's that like? You know, it's possibly not that easy to do in a big group, but you are going to be learning a lot about the people you're with. Probably more than you want to know. All right, let's move up to the throat center. So once again, we have more people with this defined than not. And, there's some interesting things that can happen when you've got it undefined that you just need to have a bit of awareness around. So you probably already have this sense of not being entirely in control of your throat, particularly when you're with other people, feeling like when you go to speak, what comes out isn't exactly what you wanted to say. So there's sort of this unexpected aspect to an undefined throat that can feel a little bit frightening. So sometimes you might want to not speak at all. That can be one option in this sort of situation. Or the other thing that can happen is being in everyone else's throat energy, you can kind of be trying to reach and be heard by someone. I hope you can't hear that on the video. There's someone's car alarm going off somewhere. Anyway, hopefully it's not mine. We'll see. So, try not to fill any space with your voice just for the sake of filling up the space. There's almost like an energy or not quite a pressure, but a feeling like you have to fill up the space. So try to resist that. You're in the place where you have the opportunity to tap into other ways of speaking, experience how to express things from someone else's point of view. All right, so have that awareness, judge whether it's a good idea to speak or not. Really use your strategy and your authority, particularly your strategy, should you be speaking or not, kind of energy, just to work out what you're going to do. All right, so that one can be tricky because, you can either sit in the corner and almost fade away, or you can become so filled, so determined to fill up the space with your voice that the other people will react to that. So have this awareness around what might be happening. All right, let's move up into the head. So first of all, we've got the ajna center. When you've got that undefined, you are taking in everybody's thoughts, essentially. So how they organize their thoughts, how they might answer questions, their opinions on things, all of those kinds of things around thoughts and ideas and organizing them. All right, is what you're taking in, what you can be amplifying. Now, this has the potential to get you caught up in arguments because you can kind of see different points of view, but someone who has this center defined, and I think it's just under 50% of people who have a defined ajna, if I remember correctly. So, there's going to be people there with defined ajnas. So they're going to have their view of something. All right. It'll be a fairly firm view. They might have different reasons why they've got it. You're going to have a different view, potentially, because you can see lots of different ideas. Don't get caught in an argument with it. It's not really worth it. You don't need to win an argument at this kind of thing. Sometimes it's better just to let it go and maybe play a little game with yourself about, whose thoughts you're picking up on. Ooh, that was an interesting thought. I wonder who that came from. Was that Betty or whoever? All right, so just have the awareness that some people are going to be far more fixed in their points of view, and some of the people who are fixed may actually have an open ajna, and they are fixed in their point of view because it helps them to feel secure and safe by having and holding strongly to this one point of view. Doesn't matter. You're not going to know unless you've studied everyone who's there's design. You can let it go. All right. No point in getting involved in that. All right. And then finally, we have the head center. So this is once again, one of those centers where you may or may not have someone in the group who has it defined, because it's slightly under 30% of people who actually have a defined head center. And they obviously also have to have a defined ajna center. So this is why it's a fairly small percentage. So there'll be someone potentially there who's got both a defined head and ajna, because you can't have one without the other, essentially. They may have all sorts of thoughts and ideas and questions and things floating around in their head, particularly, depending on what kind of mindset or mood they're in. And that can be impacting actually everyone who's in the group. So quite often, if someone's going to have a defined head and ajna, it will most likely be one person in the group. If you've got two, then that would be more unusual in like a family setting. Obviously, if it's a very large business get together or whatever, you're going to have a number of them. But for your usual like family or friend get together, there's probably going to be one. They may tend to hold, once again, to very firm opinions, have very, set ideas and things like that, because essentially you have to understand what's happening in your head and ajna to see that you need to be more open-minded than you are. So that's my personal experience of it. As someone who'll be in the room with a defined head and ajna, I need to make sure I turn up there in the best expression of myself with the most inspiring thoughts, because otherwise everyone's going to know what I'm thinking about. Everyone's going to know what my ideas and my questions and stuff like that are. And I don't want to have negativity coming in. So that's my role. But for you with an open or undefined head, it's a pressure center. So it can actually create feelings of mental stress if you're getting overwhelmed by someone or a couple of someone's ideas, questions, those kinds of things. So you don't need to get lost in them. Once again, this can be a point where potentially there could be arguments if you buy into that. So sometimes it's better just to walk away. All right. Someone with a defined head and ajna can have extremely fixed ways of viewing the world. Let me be blunt and honest about it. Okay. Walk away. So try to find ways. My general advice, I'm wrapping it up. So my general advice is find spaces and places you can have some separation from people's energy. Be aware of trying to be at the event in your best aligned energy. That means in the best expression of your defined centers. And perhaps be aware of how they might be affecting other people. So, for example, if you've got a defined root center, really, try and support people who are the ones who are putting it on or whatever, if it's not you. All right. But separation, understanding, kindness. All right. That should hopefully get you through, and then give yourself a break, like particularly if you've got a lot of undefined centers. So, more than half of your centers are undefined. You probably want to have a break on the next day, be out of energy as much as you can. All right. Good luck. Please have a wonderful holiday season. Whatever you get up to, try to avoid some of the pitfalls, but just enjoy being you. Enjoy being uniquely you. That's all you can be. Turn up as you and enjoy that. Okay. Thank you. And I will see you probably in the new year, unless I get really busy next week, but we'll see. Anyway, bye for now.